The galaxy had seen wars before. Empires had risen and burned under the weight of ambition, star systems turned to ash under the fire of conquest, and fleets numbering in the millions had clashed in the darkness of space. But what was about to happen was different. History would later record this day as the moment the galaxy learned to fear a single planet. For centuries, Earth had been ignored. A backwater world sitting on the outer spiral arm, dismissed as a primitive species barely clawing its way into orbit. The Galactic Concord monitored them, categorized them, and filed them under non-threatening. Then the signal came. A massive gravitational disturbance rippled through subspace, tripping alarms in every listening post for 50 light-years. Something was moving, a ship, larger than anything in known space, emerging from faster-than-light travel at impossible velocity. And it bore a single human designation, Titan 01. The galaxy froze. Space was silent, but not still. Sensors screamed across half a dozen sectors, detecting something massive moving through the dark at impossible velocity. Gravity wells bent in its wake, warping subspace like a stone thrown into a still pond. Listening posts deep on the galactic frontier caught fragments, shadows of readings that defied everything they knew. On the remote Ketheri outpost of Viral 9, Commander Saul stood frozen before the hollow table, all 8 of his glistening eyes locked on the anomaly. "This cannot be correct," he rasped, his mandibles clicking in agitation. His claws tapped rapidly across the console, recalibrating the sensors for the 3rd time. The readings did not change. "Mass signature, off the scale," reported his second officer, a pale green subordinate whose crest frills had flared in alarm. "Power output exceeds planetary defense grids. Commander, this thing is moving under its own power." Saul's tail lashed once behind him, a gesture of instinctive dread. "Put it on screen." The main viewports darkened, then flared to life. For a heartbeat, there was nothing but the empty starfield. Then space rippled, no, fractured, as if reality itself had been peeled open. And it emerged. A silhouette took shape against the void, vast and angular. It was not the graceful arc of a Concord capital ship, nor the living, writhing designs of the Voron hive. This was a fortress with engines. Its hull was black as forged iron, broken only by glowing veins of blue-white power that pulsed like a heartbeat. Turrets the size of destroyers tracked slowly across the dark, rotating with silent menace. The station's AI identified it immediately, translating the alien script burned into its transponder. Titan-class warship, Hyperion, United Terran Fleet. The name echoed across every communication channel, a sound no one in the galaxy had heard before. A burst of transmission followed, carried on every frequency, every language, every code the Concord used. "This is the United Terran Fleet. We come in peace. Stand by for contact." For several seconds, the outpost was silent. Then, across the galaxy, chaos erupted. On the Concord capital world of Zithris Prime, the council chambers shook with uproar. Dozens of species argued at once, their voices overlapping in a discordant storm. "This is impossible," hissed High Chancellor Yelth, her scaled body coiling in agitation. "Humans are pre-FTL. They should not even be in orbit." "Perhaps it is not human at all," suggested a member of the Rilth Collective, their many eye stalks twitching. "Perhaps it is a derelict they reactivated." "No derelict could produce this kind of power," snapped Admiral Verne of the Concord fleet. His antennae flicked forward in aggression. "The readings suggest an engine core capable of destabilizing a star if misused." And for once, no one in the chamber dared call him dramatic. Emergency orders went out. Fleets were recalled from distant patrols. Battle groups converged on the Viral sector, not to engage, but to contain. The Concord could not afford a rogue superweapon wandering the stars unchecked. Aboard the Hyperion, Captain Elias Rourke stood at the command dais, hands clasped behind his back. "Status report," he said, his voice calm but carrying through the bridge. "All systems nominal, replied Commander Arya Zhang, his first officer. FTL transition complete. Weapon capacitors holding at standby. Long-range sensors report multiple fleet signatures converging on our position. Rourke's jaw tightened slightly. How many? 24 task forces at least, Zhang said, her dark eyes flicking to the data stream. Concord, Voron, even a few independent trade guilds. We're about to have an audience. Rourke allowed himself a small, humorless smile. Good. That's what we came for. The Hyperion's bridge was a cathedral of steel and light, its crew moving with perfect precision. They were humanity's best, handpicked from every branch of the United Terran Defense Command, trained for this mission for years in secret. For decades, Earth had been watching. Hidden telescopes and listening stations picked up the faint whispers of galactic civilization, transmissions, debris, crashed probes. Humanity learned, reverse-engineered, prepared. Now, they were done hiding. Broadcast again, Rourke ordered. All channels. Make sure every species in range hears it. Yes, Captain. A moment later, the same message went out once more. This is the United Terran Fleet. We come in peace. Stand by for contact. The first alien ships dropped out of FTL an hour later. On the main view screen, the Hyperion's crew watched them arrive, sleek Concorde cruisers in perfect formation, bristling with weapons but holding fire. Then more appeared, silver-skinned freighters belonging to the neutral guilds, organic Voron scouts that pulsed like living hearts, even lone warlord frigates whose captains had come to see the spectacle with their own eyes. Within 3 hours, the Hyperion was surrounded by a fleet of hundreds. They're scanning us, reported the tactical officer. Deep sweeps, hull composition, power cores, weapons. Everything. Let them look, Rourke said. The scans would tell them what words could not. This ship was no bluff. The Hyperion was a masterpiece of engineering, its engines capable of outrunning most fleets, its weapons powerful enough to shatter moons. And this was just the first of its class. For a time, no one moved. No shots were fired. The galaxy simply stared. On the Kethari outpost, Commander Saul remained glued to his viewport, watching the human warship hold its position in perfect stillness. A part of him wanted to believe it truly came in peace. Another part knew that if it did not, there was nothing in the entire sector that could stop it. This changes everything, he whispered. And deep in his gut, Saul knew the galaxy would never be the same. The galaxy came to meet humanity. The fleet surrounding the Hyperion had grown so vast that its collective mass warped local gravity. Cruisers, carriers, and dreadnoughts from dozens of species formed an uneasy sphere around the Titan-class warship. Every scanner was locked on it, every gun silently tracking its movements. On the Hyperion's bridge, Captain Elias Rourke stood like a man carved from iron, watching the tactical display bloom with hostile signatures. Concorde flagship incoming, reported tactical. They're hailing. Put them through. A hologram crackled to life in the center of the bridge. Admiral Vexer appeared, towering, insectoid, his chitinous armor glinting under the light. His compound eyes glimmered with barely restrained fury. Human vessel, he hissed, his voice a chorus of clicking tones translated into flawless English. You are in violation of Concorde law. Species of your classification are forbidden to construct war engines of this magnitude. The bridge crew watched silently, tension thick as the void outside. Rourke didn't flinch. Then, he said calmly, your law is outdated. A ripple of shock passed over the alien admiral's face, subtle but unmistakable. Few had ever spoken so plainly to a Concorde fleet commander, fewer still while surrounded by 100 hostile warships. You risk annihilation, Vexer warned, mandibles snapping shut. Decommission this vessel. Submit to Concorde oversight. You will be evaluated and, if deemed worthy, uplifted under proper supervision. Rourke's lips curled into a humorless smile. No. The word rang like a gunshot. We will not kneel, Rourke continued. His voice stayed even, but every syllable carried steel. Earth has watched your council ignore us, classify us, decide our future without so much as a conversation. That ends today. You will deal with us as equals, or not at all. On the other side of the transmission, the Concorde bridge erupted in a flurry of activity as officers relayed updates, no doubt preparing contingency plans. Rourke waited, his crew silent, as though the entire ship held its breath. Admiral Vexer leaned closer, his shadow filling the hollow display. Do you have any idea what you are provoking? Yes, Rourke said simply. We've seen what the Concorde does to worlds that resist. We built this ship to make sure Earth is never one of them. The Concorde delegation arrived within the hour. The Arclight Sovereign, a kilometer-long battlecruiser plated in silver alloy, maneuvered alongside the Hyperion with military precision. A magnetic docking tether locked both ships together, forming an uneasy bridge between two civilizations. Inside the Hyperion's grand atrium, an open, cathedral-like chamber designed for exactly this moment, humanity waited. Rourke stood at the head of a raised platform, flanked by a dozen Marines in black exo-armor. Their rifles were mag-locked across their chests, their visors expressionless, but the message was clear: they were here to be seen. The alien delegation entered. Admiral Vexer came first, accompanied by a cadre of advisors and officers representing multiple species. Some towered, some slithered, some hovered in antigrav pods, but all radiated the same tension. This is not a negotiation chamber, one of the advisors hissed, its voice like grinding stone. This is a war hall. Rourke did not move from where he stood. That depends on how this meeting goes. Vexer raised one clawed hand, silencing his entourage. Speak, human. State your demands before this council. We demand nothing, Rourke said. His voice was steady, measured. We offer cooperation, on equal footing. Trade, exploration, mutual defense. But if the Concorde expects us to disarm, to submit, to hand over the only means we have to defend ourselves, then the answer is no. One of the alien admirals hissed in outrage. This ship is an affront to interstellar stability. You would destabilize the entire galactic order for your pride? Not pride, Rourke said, stepping forward. Survival. You have seen what happens to unprotected worlds. They are colonized. Stripped. Erased. Earth will not share that fate. He gestured subtly, and the atrium's vast holodisplay flickered to life. Schematics of the Hyperion rotated in the air, highlighting its superstructure, its reactor cores, its weapons arrays. The display shifted, showing massive orbital shipyards above Earth and Mars, their forges active, assembly frames holding the beginnings of more Titan-class hulls. The alien delegation stared, some with barely concealed alarm. You have more, one of them whispered. Rourke's answer was quiet, but it struck like thunder. We will. When the talks reached an impasse, Rourke made his point unmistakable. Charge the forward batteries, he said softly into his comm. The deck vibrated as the Hyperion's primary weapons powered up, a sound like distant thunder rolling through the hull. Through the atrium's transparent viewports, the alien delegation watched as the ship's prow-mounted mass accelerator aligned with a barren moon orbiting the nearby gas giant. Fire one shot, Rourke ordered. The blast was blinding. A single tungsten slug, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, streaked through the void. The moon shattered like glass, its fragments scattering in a slow, majestic bloom. A halo of dust glowed in the starlight. The atrium was silent but for the low hum of the Hyperion's power core. This is what one of our guns can do, Rourke said quietly. And we have 32 of them. Admiral Vexer stood motionless, mandibles slightly parted. For a long, tense moment, he said nothing. Then, slowly, he inclined his head. Very well, he said. We will carry your terms to the Concord Council. But know this, human, your defiance has earned you enemies. There are factions who will not tolerate your rise. Rourke nodded once. Then they can take a number and get in line. We'll be ready. The delegation withdrew in silence. No one looked back. On the Hyperion's bridge, hours later, Zhang approached her captain. You think they'll listen? She asked quietly. They'll have to, Rourke said, his gaze fixed on the stars. Fear is the only language the galaxy seems to understand. We just taught them to speak ours. Outside, the blockade remained. Hundreds of ships still circled the Titan-class warship like wolves watching a bear. The air was electric, as though the whole sector balanced on the edge of a knife. And somewhere deep inside, Rourke knew this was only the beginning. The standoff had lasted 37 hours. Outside the Hyperion's armored hull, the largest gathering of warships in living memory hung in silence. Hundreds of Concord cruisers, Hive frigates, and mercenary carriers formed a steel wall, their weapons hot, their crews waiting for the single order that would unleash a war unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. On the Hyperion's bridge, Captain Elias Rourke had not left his post. He stood at the viewing deck, hands clasped behind his back, his face illuminated by the cold glow of tactical displays. Blockade is holding position, Commander Zhang reported quietly. Their fleet is fully powered. Every gun is trained on us. They're waiting for a council decision, Rourke said. His voice was calm, but the tension in the air was a living thing, pressing down on every crew member. And if the decision is war? Zhang asked. Rourke didn't look away from the stars. Then we show them what war really means. Far across the sector, in the Concord High Council chambers, chaos reigned. Representatives from 50 member species argued in a cacophony of screeches, roars, and translated voices. The debate was no longer about humanity alone, it was about the very future of galactic order. They have built an extinction-class weapon without Concord sanction, cried the delegate from the Vorshi Dominion, its tendrils writhing with agitation. If one world may arm itself so, then every backwater species will rise up and... Perhaps they should, interrupted the envoy of the Browl Collective, their multiple eyes flashing. You speak of order, but your order is tyranny. The humans have achieved in 2 centuries what takes others millennia. Why punish them for their genius? Because if they rise unchecked, bellowed Admiral Jex of the Concord Navy, the balance collapses. The next war will not be between fleets, it will burn entire sectors. High Chancellor Yelth slammed her staff against the floor, silencing the chamber. The vote will be called, she hissed. War, or recognition. Choose. Back aboard the Hyperion, the air was electric. Captain, the communications officer said, turning in his chair, we're intercepting partial council transmissions. They're split, heavily split. This could go either way. Rourke nodded once, then keyed his command channel. Signal Earth Command, he said. Bring the fleet online. A murmur rippled through the bridge crew. Zhang glanced at him sharply. Sir, you mean? Yes, Rourke said. It's time. Space tore open. One by one, 5 more Titan-class warships emerged from faster-than-light transit, each appearing like a black spear thrust into the void. They formed up behind the Hyperion in a perfect battle line, their hulls gleaming with reflected starlight. Together, they blotted out half the sky. Every ship in the Concord blockade powered down weapons, instinctively, almost reflexively. It was one thing to stare down a single unknown superweapon. It was another to face 6 of them, each capable of shattering moons. Open a channel, Rourke ordered. The fleet-wide broadcast went out, not just to the Concord ships, but to every listening post and open frequency in the sector. This is Captain Elias Rourke of the United Terran Fleet, he said, his voice steady as bedrock. You asked what humanity wants. Here is your answer. He gestured, and behind him the holodisplay bloomed to life, showing images of Earth cities, its people, its oceans and forests. Then came images of orbital shipyards under construction, entire fleets of Titan hulls taking shape. "We are not here to conquer," Rourke said. "We are here to stand beside you. To trade, to explore, to defend ourselves, and, if need be, defend others. But understand this, if you seek to chain us, to strike us down before we take our first steps among the stars." The Titan fleet's weapons locked on, targeting computers painting every hostile vessel in range. Then you will discover that humanity does not break. On the Concorde flagship, Admiral Vexer stood frozen, mandibles clicking in nervous rhythm. His bridge officers exchanged uneasy glances. They had seen the moon shatter. They had seen the Titan's guns. Now there were 6 of them. "Admiral," one of his officers said in a strained voice, "if we fire, they will destroy us. If we do not, the Council will call us cowards." Vexer stared at the display a moment longer, then slowly, deliberately, he powered down his flagship's weapons. "All ships," he said over fleet-wide comms, "hold fire. Await Council verdict." The verdict came an hour later. High Chancellor Yelth appeared on every major comm network, her voice heavy with reluctant authority. "By order of the Concorde High Council," she declared, "the Terran Union is recognized as a sovereign Tier 4 civilization. Their fleet shall be granted provisional neutrality, and their representatives will be invited to the next Grand Convocation." A wave of tension broke like a dam. Across the sector, Concorde ships powered down, breaking formation. The blockade dissolved, its captains eager to put distance between themselves and the 6 silent giants watching from the void. On the Hyperion's bridge, relief was quiet, almost reverent. Zhang let out a slow breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "They blinked," she said softly. "No," Rourke replied. His gaze never left the stars. "They chose survival." He turned to his crew, his voice carrying across the bridge. "Transmit our thanks," he said. And then set course, deep range. "It's time we saw what else is out there." The Hyperion's engines rumbled to life, joined by the other 5 Titans. Slowly, majestically, the fleet turned as one and engaged their FTL drives. From the observation decks of 100 alien ships, crews watched in silence as the Terran warships vanished into the dark, leaving only faint ripples in the fabric of space. In the quiet that followed, the galaxy understood something new. A single planet, once dismissed as primitive, had just forced the greatest power in the known universe to acknowledge its place at the table. And if 6 Titan-class warships could command such fear, what would happen when humanity built 60? Or 600? No one could say. But every admiral, every diplomat, every soldier who had seen the Hyperion that day would never forget the lesson. Humanity had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same.